So after seeing the entire callback help pattern and how the code completely messes up by using callbacks, we will find an alternative for it, or Node.js has given an alternative for that. Let's discuss about that right now, right? So promises. So first thing, promises are kind of replacement to callback help, right? So callback help. So if one task is dependent on another, it means you don't know where the code is being executed and where the control is at that point of time, right? So to avoid callbacks, promises came into picture, right? So what is promise now? So promise is nothing but, like, let's say when you give somebody a promise, like I'll do this thing. So there are only two possibilities: either you will do that thing or you won't do that thing. So either you resolve that promise or you reject that promise, right? So the same concept applies here as well in JavaScript. That is promise. So before assigning or before giving somebody a work, what you do is you take a promise from them. What they will do is either they will resolve that promise or they will reject that promise, and that's what called as promises in JavaScript. It are kind of replacement to callbacks. Like when you're assigning a callback, what you're saying, when your work is done, call me with the callback, right? So let's say function task1 a comma b and callback, right? This callback is going to take the result, but there can be a cases where there is an error, right? So there is an error or there is a callback, right? So what happens in this case? So either it can be an error also, right? When you are processing, because that time is that execution is taking. Let's say you are calling a network, it is going to return you after 2 minutes, but there can be a possible error also, right? So how do you inform your callback function, right? So set timeout a function, right? Set timeout function, and what you do here is callback. You are calling your callback function, right? With an error. So a new error. It means when some error is going to happen in this stage, when some error is going to happen over here, then in such cases, the callback first argument is going to be error. Otherwise, it is going to be a result. So even in case of callback, if you want to pass error, this is how you used to communicate, right? Now it means callback is definitely called either with an error or with the result. Now keeping the same thing in mind, a promise can be resolved or rejected. So first let's see how you can create a promise, right? So how do you create a promise? So basically promises are returned by an asynchronous function. So it's just that if an asynchronous function is there, you're calling a callback function. Instead of that calling a callback function, now those asynchronous functions will be returning a promise in replacement of callback. So let's say function task1 is now going to be converted as set timeout, right? And set timeout, and this is going to execute after 2 seconds. Maybe our output is going to come after 2 seconds. Now this set timeout previously used to callback function, but now it is going to return a new promise. So what it is going to do is return new promise. New promise is inbuilt object from JavaScript, core JavaScript. You don't have to import it, right? New promise, and this promise will get a callback which has two arguments, resolve comma reject, right? So here, so your task 1 is now returning a promise, right? And this promise internally receives a callback. Wherever you go, callback are going to present, but it's just that the way you're writing your code is going to change, because callback hell is continuous, completely messing up the code program, right? So resolve or reject. Now set timeout function a comma b, right? A comma b, this is accessible over here, a comma b, and this is going to execute after 1000. So if there is any error, then we will reject it. Otherwise, we will resolve the data a plus b. That's it. So if there is any error occurring, so how do you know if there is any error occurring? You wrap it inside a try catch block, right? We wrap it inside a try catch block, and yes, error. So then you reject it. So now see, you are returning, task 1 is returning a promise which is can be either resolved or which can be either rejected. So this is the new way of handling the promises. So if you see here, function task 2, though it is dependent on task 1 result, it is doing nothing. It's just console.logging, or you can just put it over here, return new promise. So the same task 1 and task 2 which followed callback pattern, now they are following resolve comma reject the promise pattern. So first thing, promise. So I'll write it down a bit slow. Function return new promise. Function, this is going to take a callback function, resolve comma reject, and then here our code logic will be there, that is set timeout, and a function which prints the data, that is console.log result, right? And then this is going to be called after 1000, right? Now our main function is going to be modified a bit differently, right? Previously we passed task 1 to task 2. Now instead of doing that, you do it in a different way. That is task 1 of 10 comma 20 dot then. So promises. So let's see what happens when we console.log result is equal to task 1, and when we console.log result, what happens in this case? Let's see that, right? So see, it is saying promise is in pending state. It means we didn't allow, or we didn't wait till the promise is resolved, and when the task 1 is completed, this promise is still running because it will be completed after 1 second. So to tackle this, what JavaScript has given to us is that it simply said wrap it inside then. So there will be 2 blocks or chaining which is supported by JavaScript. One is then and the other is catch. So whatever arguments you pass in the resolve, those arguments are received as argument to this function which is inside the callback of then, and whatever arguments you pass in the reject, those arguments will be appearing over here. So console.log error or console.log result, right? So but task 2, where is task 2? Yes, so first I got task 1's output, that is result, right? So first I'll be getting task 1 output passed over here. So task 1 a plus b, oh no, this is not a plus b, yeah, task 1 is going to give me sum of a plus b, right? And this result now I have to pass to task 2. So task 2 is then receiving the result, whatever we resolve it, that is passed as an argument over here, and then again you wrap it inside it then, right? Because that is the final output, and this is not passing any value to us. It is not resolving anything. So we simply say resolve empty object, right? So then function, that's it. Though you don't even need to define this because you just have to wait, or you can say console.log process execution completed, because this is the last. After resolving task 2, there are no tasks left for you, right? And again, if you see here, this console.log end of main function, right? Now when I execute this code, first task 1 and task 2 are asynchronous functions, so they have been put in different loop or different event loop, and end of function has been called, and then task 1 execution is done. That's why it is resolving with a plus b, and that a plus b is passed or received as an argument inside the then, and task 2 uh, was sent with this result, and task 2 again resolved, but in task 2 we are just console.logging. So after task 2's console.log, then process execution completed. So this, see, task 2 and here console.log task 1, and yeah. So now if you see here, end of main task, first task 1, then 30 task 2, then process execution completed. So it kind of looks for us like it is being executed as what do I say, synchronous, but main thread is already completed a task by assigning it or pushing it to the callback queues, and then main thread made itself free for new requests for coming up, like as we discussed about the token man. He gives the token and pushes them inside, and now he is not caring about what is happening, but he is ready to accept or ready to give more number of tokens. So this is called as promises, right? So you return promise from asynchronous function instead of calling a callback function, and also you resolve or reject a promise by chaining it with the then or catch. So whenever we reject, that data is going to come here. So let me throw an error wantedly, right? Throw new error, unexpected error. Now when you do this, right, see, unexpected error. So here it came here, last catch block. When I execute this, unexpected error. So when it is rejected, it goes into the catch block, and when it is resolved, it goes into the then block, right? Now yes, now see, task 1 is again inside the task 2, and all of this nonsense is going to continue, right? So I can bit modify this so that it becomes a little cleaner, right? So I can directly pass task 2, and then I can say then function, right? Then I can say function result, right? Function result, the end. So when I execute this type of code, now what is happening? Unexpected error. So resolve. So you can chain the promises in this fashion as well. So now instead of putting inside the then block, I have in the then block, I have given task 2 as the next function and I have added another then block. So it means you can add multiple number of then blocks if one function is returning another promise. So now when I execute this code, task 1, task 30, task 2, and then the end has been printed. So all the promises are resolved, then only it's going to be working. So any number of promises, you can keep on adding it dot then dot then dot then so that it works, right? So this is the new promises way of handling, wherein you don't have to worry about callback else because there is no callback now. It is all dot then and dot catch, right? Now people were even, I mean, it becomes really clumsy again when you are dealing with lots of code, because we are habituated to look the code bottom wise, not the right wise. So they had to do some magic on JavaScript side to syntactically improve this a lot better, and that's when the async await came into picture. The async await came into picture. Okay, let's discuss about that in a separate video.